Hello, listeners. Kathy Lawless here, Life Story Curator, bringing you this podcast series, How Did I Get Here? A series of interviews designed for people just starting out in their careers, in transition, or possibly stuck, and giving them access to the career stories of people who have been in transition, maybe stuck, or just starting out. And today I'm very excited to be interviewing Chris Koch, who is the Director of Membership and Strategic Partnerships at Colorado Thought Leaders. Hello, Chris.
Good morning.
And Chris's journey, I think, touches on all three of our categories. He's recently changed careers, so he's kind of just starting out, but also was feeling a bit stuck and in transition, so can't wait to get to the meat. But before we get to the meat, I always like to start with the icebreaker questions to give our audience a sense of who you are. So let's talk about where you grew up, how many kids in your family, where were you in the birth order, and how that influenced you.
Perfect. Well, I'm a Colorado native. I've spent almost my entire life living and working in Colorado. My parents divorced when I was young. My dad remarried, and interestingly, my mom ended up falling in love with another woman. And so essentially I have almost three families of siblings.
Oh, wow.
My brother and I, the two blood relatives, I'm the youngest. I have two stepsisters that are both younger than me, so that puts me in the middle through my dad's remarriage. And then my mom's partner has three kids, two of which are older than me, one of which is younger than me.
Oh, wow. So this is quite a blended family for you.
Exactly. And so I think growing up, especially through high school, there were moments in junior high and high school where I was either the youngest or in some situations the oldest, or for most of it the middle child. So it was, it kind of shapes you in different ways, different environments, exposure to a lot of different things.
So you didn't have probably that traditional mindset of I'm the oldest or youngest or wow, because you had to play all the roles.
Yeah, you do. You play a lot of different roles at different times in your life, and so, for me, it started pretty early with those different roles.
Yeah. So did you kind of split time with your parents then, or did you with each of them?
Yeah. So when I was after my dad and my mom were divorced, we would alternate every other weekend with the parents. But my dad only lived at first just up the street, and so some days I would walk home from school to his house, sometimes to my mom's house. But I also grew up ski racing, and my dad and I were the two in the family that really had a passion for skiing. And so any day, if there was snow on the ground and I wasn't in school, my dad and I were in some way involved in skiing. And so not the traditional, hey, your parents are divorced and you see one significantly more than the other. I was really blessed in that I was still around both of my parents a great deal. Winters, of course, with skiing, and then in the summers, my dad was our soccer coach.
Wow.
The biggest change, I think, when they divorced is that Dad wasn't always sleeping in the same house that I was, but I probably saw him almost as much as when they were married.
Wow. So really you just kind of had two homes.
Correct,
Sounds like,
yeah,
and your
like
family just got
homes.
Bigger.
Exactly.
So what city did you grow up in then?
So I grew up in Arvada, just a little bit north of here, and from the city of Denver. Most people think of the area around just south of the Boulder Turnpike and Wadsworth. So I was a Pomona High School graduate. Ended up going to University of Northern Colorado as well, so stayed in the area for college, and only really a 6-month stint down in the Phoenix area right after college. But other than that, stayed here in Colorado for most of my life.
Yeah, probably because of the mountains, right?
I was drawn for a long time into the ski industry. And
so you already kind of touched on skiing and soccer. Was there other sports too, or those are the primary?
Yeah, those were really the primary. In junior high and a little bit in high school, I dabbled in both wrestling and in football. Mostly from a standpoint of being in shape for the ski season and the competitions that I was going to there.
Yeah.
And when those sports at a higher level started to compete with my time for the ski season, I left those and instead kept my high school involvement more in the theater and music departments. Instead of in sports, because the ski racing aspect was through Winter Park Resort rather than through a high school.
Yeah, most high schools don't have ski teams, right?
Most of the Denver metro high schools don't have ski teams. You get up into the mountains, and most of those high schools do. But Yeah, definitely different. There was a ski club in high school, but I didn't really participate in it.
Yeah. So you mentioned music and theater. Do you play an instrument, or do you sing, or
Yeah,
dance,
so
or do you all
I
of the above?
sing poorly.
I sing poorly.
I sing poorly.
And in the car? And do you sing in your car?
A little bit in the car, a little bit in the shower. I don't play an instrument. And interestingly, this goes back over 20 years, but I was an all-state choir for both mixed choir and jazz choir, but I can't read music.
Oh.
I can't read a line of music at all, and was lucky to be around a group of people that welcomed me in, and my singing voice is deep enough that it was able to add something that a lot of the other students at the time couldn't. So I was lucky to be able to participate in a lot of different things.
Well, it's funny you mentioned you can't read music. I call myself kind of a trained musician. I can read music and play the piano. But I don't consider myself talented musically.
Yeah. Okay.
There's certain people that can just sit down and they can pick up a tune and pluck it out. And that's my husband.
Yeah.
He can, on the guitar, noodle things out. And I'm like, boy, I need that music right there.
Right.
So,
yeah. I've always really admired that person that can, pick up an instrument or hear a tune and immediately be able to play it. It's not me.
Yeah, my best singing's in the car, by the way, by myself. So, okay, so we're going to shift gears just a smidge here. Do you speak any other languages?
A little bit of Spanish. Used to speak more Spanish. I'm at a point now where I can understand usually the theme of what someone's discussing, but usually can't respond to them in Spanish.
Okay. I always ask that because a lot of times people young study another language. Okay, on the fun meter, on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being couch potato, 5 life of the party, where do you put yourself on the fun meter?
Yeah, I'm an introvert by nature, and so I'm not consistently the life of the party, but I love to experience things. So I like to be out away from the couch, but like to soak things in as an active observer. In most cases,
active observer. I like that.
Or being out in areas of solitude, hiking, camping, fishing, those types of things. Moving, doing something rather than being the person on center stage or the life of the party.
Well, I love that because it really comes down to how do you define fun, right? And you're defining it in a certain way. I kind of put it, couch potato and life of the party. But okay, yeah. Cool. So did you give me a number?
Yeah, I would put myself in the 3 range.
In the 3 range,
yeah,
okay.
I like to be in the middle, yeah.
Okay, risk meter, same scale on 1 to 5. 1 being low risk, 2 or 5 being high risk. Where do you put yourself?
Yeah, I think there's 2 different scales for me on that. There's the physical risk, and at this point, I consider myself low on the physical risk scale. I'd probably be in the 2 range, whereas earlier, 20 years ago when I was heavily involved in skiing still, I would put myself probably on a 6 on the 1 to 5 scale.
Well, yeah, when I heard ski racing, I'm like, whoa, yeah.
But then if you look at the experiencing new things and taking a risk by, going to new environments, traveling to new countries, getting involved in something I've never done before, where there isn't a high physical risk, I would say I'm open to risk. And so I'd say in the 4 range. For those things that aren't physically threatening.
Ah, okay. Well, and that might influence then your recent career change too then, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So, well, let's talk just a little bit about what you do today so people
Perfect.
Understand what it means to be the Director of Membership and Strategic Partnerships. And then we'll get into how did I get here?
Yeah, so essentially what my role is with Colorado Thought Leaders Forum is I look at our 5 programs that we offer, and I find ways to augment or adjust those programs to fit the needs of our members and to welcome new members into our programs. So I have the opportunity to work collaboratively with our members, with potential members, with outside organizations to deliver content and experiences in a way that enriches and elevates business leaders throughout Colorado.
Wow. So I was just going to say that. And so who's your target member? It's a Colorado business leader, right?
Colorado business leaders, it's those folks that have had some success in their life where they have taken on some type of leadership role. And that could be I'm managing people for the first time, or I'm the CEO of a large company. We have a lot of business owners. We have a lot of entrepreneurs. We have a lot of senior leaders in larger organizations. It's The biggest target that we look for is that people that are willing to give and to support the growth of other people. How do we come together to help others grow? And then together we change the way business is done in Colorado.
Yeah. Well, I love being part of Colorado Thought Leaders Forum. I'm, in the Wise Women program, but also in the Strategic Connections downtown chapter. And I've already interviewed, I don't know how many leaders from this organization, so I'm very excited to interview you. And then I also have kind of Sarah, the president, on tap as well. But getting on her schedule is crazy, as you know. So
exactly.
Okay, so let's go a little bit way back when and go. Okay, well, when Chris was young, were you thinking, one day I'm going to be in a leadership program? I mean, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I went through those phases. I think you look at depending on the year, it was a different idea of what I wanted to be. I had those moments where I wanted to be a firefighter. There's moments where I wanted to be in the military. There's moments where marketing and sales were incredibly interesting to me. The piece that was constant through all of those roles that I wanted to be involved in when I was young is that I wanted to be involved in helping other people in some way. Whether it be, helping battle a fire or going to defend what we've held as dear, or helping people communicate their ideas and their thoughts, or a big section. And when I went to college, I was going to be a teacher. Studying history and was wanted to be an elementary school teacher for a big section. And it was always about what can I give back to other people in a way that was fulfilling for me.
And was that a kind of a conscious understanding of yourself at the time, or did you kind of get that aha moment, as you got older and you started looking back going, here's the common thread, or at the time where you're like, I got to find something where I'm working with people?
Yeah, for me, it was more looking back at the careers and the roles that I've had over time in realizing those elements of the job that I gravitated towards, that I felt the most fulfilled in.
Yeah.
Right. Those areas where I felt where I could really be my best, tended to gravitate towards building coalitions, bringing people together, not because I had something specifically to give them, but instead I saw a diverse group of people that could come together, that together we could give something back, or develop something new, or create a new experience for other people. So when I saw those opportunities, that's what I gravitated towards. And looking back, it happened at every single job I've ever had, from one of my first jobs selling shoes at Tom McCann when I was in high school.
Oh, Tom McCann, I forgot about them.
Yeah, this is not a name you hear, working in the mall in high school. But even to the career I have now, it's always gravitated through how can I help people? And in that Tom McCann role as well, I wanted to help train the new people, right? I wanted to talk to the guests or the clients as they would come in, the customers as they come in, and instead of just going, hey, I want to sell them a shoe, is that I wanted to know why they needed a shoe. What were they going to use the shoe for? And then talk about, how could the shoe help them, instead of like, hey, here's a nice shoe. Does it fit?
Yeah.
Let's go.
They're like, I have a job interview,
exactly.
or I have a big event I'm going to, or what have you.
Yeah.
Okay. So you mentioned you went to UNC,
I
correct?
did.
So what was your degree in?
History. Was planning to be an elementary school teacher.
Oh, that's right.
As I mentioned, towards the end of college, realized I wasn't going to be a good fit inside a classroom every day. I was really blessed in high school in that I got to do a lot of work with the Jefferson County outdoor lab schools, and that's what ignited, kind of this thought that I would be a teacher. But really, the environment of outdoor lab schools, you're out on trails. You're teaching content, but in a non-traditional way. You're not sitting down at a desk.
It's experiential, right?
It's very experiential, and it took me a few years in college to realize that teaching then and what we were being taught to then deliver in a classroom wasn't experiential. We see some of the same trends now, but it was about taking tests to some degree, and it was those very talented teachers that I had that brought experiential, kind of learning into the classroom that I respected, but also realized that there probably wasn't a pathway that fit what I wanted to do to really be an experiential teacher at that time. So I took life in a different direction.
So, did you change mid-college, or did you get a degree? And
No, it was after college that I'd really decided it wasn't a fit. It just wasn't the right direction. So I moved down to Arizona for a little bit. Had a very good friend down there, and he had been down for in the Phoenix area for a few years, and not knowing what I wanted to do anymore, I thought, I'll move to Arizona. If you've ever been to Phoenix in the middle of the summer, I strongly encourage you, 120 degrees is not fun. Choosing to move to Phoenix in the middle of the summer is even a worse idea. And it went from 65 degrees
Note to self.
in Colorado to almost 120
wow,
in
almost
Phoenix.
double the temperature.
And it just was not the right fit. So didn't know from a career standpoint what I wanted to do. And so it was a good delay in planning my life. But it also created some clarity that I wanted to be in Colorado. I wanted to be near the mountains. I wanted to have access to the type of activities that I wanted to do without it being 120 degrees.
Well, sometimes you know there are those moves or those changes that give you clarity, but in the opposite, right? They're like, oh, this is what I don't want.
Yeah.
I remember a friend one time said the whole reason he's in IT is because he drove heavy equipment for a summer. He got a job driving heavy equipment, and the noise, the dust, the repetition of it, he was like, and it really pushed him to go to college. But he hadn't planned, he didn't really like college, tried it, didn't like it. But then once he did that, he's like, nope, I'm going to college. And then that's how he got into IT.
Exactly. My dad had told me after a couple of jobs, through high school and then into college when I was, still working, paid for some of my college myself. He said, well, at least another job that you don't want.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So you have an experience, you do something for a while, you learn and you grow in every role that you have in life, and at least at the end of that role, hey, this isn't what I want to do for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Well, that's great advice, right? Because you could be feeling a little bit negative about it. I didn't make it a good decision. But it's like, no, like you said, I took 6 months, I figured this out, and I went, you know what, now I'm really clear on how important the mountains are to me and, certain things. So,
exactly.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so then you moved back to Colorado?
Back to Colorado, ended up becoming a personal banking officer. So got into home equity lines of credit, home equity loans, checking accounts, savings accounts, that type of thing.
How did you get into that? Did you know someone?
Had a friend that made an introduction, and it just kind of worked out to get the job. And it's funny, I had mentioned earlier that I grew up ski racing, and all through college, I made a conscious decision to not be involved in skiing anymore. I didn't want to continue to ski race.
So you just raced in high school?
Yeah,
then,
just up until high school. So from about 7 years old until I was 18. And in college, really separated from that aspect of my life. Didn't want to be that heavily involved in skiing, not because I didn't want to ski, but in high school particularly, because I was spending majority of my time that there was snow on the ground up at the resort, I didn't develop some of the relationships or maintain some of the relationships with people in my life the rest of the year. And so wanted to build connections to have a traditional college experience while I was in college. And so made that decision to stay away. Interestingly, though, my dad, who started teaching skiing part-time on the side when I was ski racing, because he had to drive me up anyway.
What's he going to do while he's up there, right?
Exactly. Might as well teach skiing while he's up there. Started to every single year say, hey, you should come up and be a part-time instructor. You would love it. You would like it. You would be good at it. 5-6 years later, I'm tired of listening to the question. And so I thought, I'll do this for 1 year, part-time. It's only 20 days for the season. And then I can tell my dad it's not what I want to do, and it's another job I know that I don't want.
But I'll appease my dad.
But I'll appease my dad. Well, I made it a month into the ski season. I quit my job at the bank and moved up to the mountains.
Oh.
Ended up staying at the resort, living in the mountains for 16 years, a total of 18 years with the resort itself, with a couple of those being back here in Denver.
Kind of funny how your dad was right. Huh?
Exactly. Those things where, here you're in your early 20s. Probably the last thing you want to admit is that your parents are right.
Yeah.
It was one of those situations.
Well, yeah, because you think about you were thinking about being a teacher, but you wanted to be an outdoor teacher. Well, why?
So
teaching skiing, and you were a great skier, obviously, because you were racing. You're in your element, and your dad's like, "Hey, this is your element." You're like, "No, that's not for me."
Exactly.
Well, we all have to find our way, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then in the ski industry, there's a lot of different roles. I was involved in the ski school for 16 of those 18 years, and it was a series of different jobs. It was, an instructor, a kids instructor, an adult instructor, a supervisor in the kids programs, a trainer, an adult manager, and then the business development manager. So a lot of different roles, from sometimes seasonal to eventually year-round, and then finishing my career in the ski industry as the front range sales manager and sponsorship manager for the resort. So working with companies like Coca-Cola and New Belgium Brewing to bring them into the resort and develop experiences, and just selling season passes, right? Getting more people involved and going up and having the opportunity to make turns. Or back at the start of the career when it's teaching people physically, how to ski. From kids, could be 3 years old, and the oldest person I ever taught was 98.
Oh, wow.
On the snow, which was an amazing experience. Yeah, amazing experience.
Now, what about like big events, competitions and stuff? Did you get into the event side of it as well? Is that what you meant when you, like Coca-Cola and, bringing sponsors?
So, when we would have, a sponsor, really I think of it as a partnership with a company like New Belgium. It was brewing, beers like Fat Tire. New Belgium at the time started to brew a beer for us at Winter Park called Mary Jane Ale. And I was lucky enough to be a part of the team that negotiated that contract, that developed not only the financial side of the relationship, but really got to work closely with the team at New Belgium to design how did they want to be involved in the resort that was authentic to their brand and who they were as a company, but it was also authentic to who Winter Park was as a brand, as a resort, as a community.
So, great synchronicity and alignment.
Yeah, so wow. It's, you think of, there's those traditional elements of a sponsorship that are, a banner placement and a logo and email inclusion, but I think what we were most excited about doing with New Belgium at the time, we did an amazing kind of launch of one of their beers. They at the time launched a beer called Slow Ride, and in the summer they brought up about 80 people on the train from Denver up to the resort, a slow ride up to the mountains for a weekend of summer activities, a beer tasting dinner at the resort. And we think about, yes, there's some events and stuff that were part of those types of sponsorship, but it was really those unique experiences that we were able to create for the guests at Winter Park through the partnerships with companies like New Belgium that were really a lot of fun to play with.
Yeah, very creative and new ideas. So it sounded like you're there for 18 years, but had 8 or 9 different careers or roles?
Yeah, really 8 or 9 different roles. So the start, in the ski industry as an instructor, you don't really make any money. And so...
And do you have to hustle to get your own... shouldn't say the word hustle. Do you have
clients.
To get your own clients? Or
to some degree, building out a private lesson client and maintaining those relationships is a quicker way to make being an instructor financially stable, right? But as group lessons come in, as people come to the resort and sign up for lessons, they're being assigned to instructors based on their skill set. And so that was the start of it. But the nature of the ski industry is very seasonal, right? There's not only is it seasonal from winter to summer, but it's seasonal during the winter, right? There are very busy times over the holidays, and there are slow times as well. And so the nature of being in the ski industry, you have side gigs. you do other things as well to kind of maintain a lifestyle that you can afford. At the time, in the summers when my job was seasonal at Winter Park Resort, I was with a guest ranch in the Granby area. It was a 5-star guest ranch, and I had the opportunity to work with them as their assistant general manager for many years, and absolutely loved the people. I think the piece that was so special about that ranch environment is that it exposed me to guests that were coming that were business leaders from all over the country. And I had the opportunity to be in conversations with them and to hear about their business and to hear about their life stories and how they got into what they got in. And it really kind of awoken a passion for learning different business models and to trying to figure out, given the business landscape, what was the opportunity to tweak it just a little bit, to get that extra 2%, 5%, 3%, whatever, of exposure or revenue or customer satisfaction, and was able to take those types of experiences at the ranch into different roles at the ski area as well. Yeah. So when I became a supervisor, how could we maximize the efficiency from the operations to deliver a higher quality experience for our guests? When I became the adult manager, how could we augment our programs by developing new programs, new ways for people to engage at the resort, to learn how to ski or to snowboard? And then in the business development role is how do we augment our marketing? How do we develop our relationships with the other departments to drive more people through our programs so that they could become lifelong sports enthusiasts, whether it be skiing or snowboarding or telemarketing, whatever it was? How could we get them to share, to really engage in what we all had so much passion for? And that was at the time for me, skiing, snowboarding.
Yeah, because you're doing this full time, and these people are doing it for a weekend.
Yeah, a lot of people, the Denver skier with a season pass, they might come up 10 times, 12 times over the season. For the person coming up from Texas over Christmas, they might only ski for 3 or 4 days a year. For other people, it might be they only ski once in their lifetime for a couple of days, and it's their only experience when they travel from another country. So you really working to design ways for people to engage that fit them and fit their goals. At Winter Park, they have a philosophy of what they call guest-centered teaching, right? It's not what do I want to teach you, but what do you want from an experience on the mountain, and then really designing what you're doing, and all of our instructors working to design what they're doing with a guest so that they have the experience that they want. They get out of it what their needs are tied to, not what I think they should be doing as a professional.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I'm hearing a couple themes here. One is you're learning and growing from every part of your world, from your summer, what you're doing in the summers and in the winters, but the people that you meet, it sounds like you were learning and gathering information from them like a sponge.
Yeah.
But then also you were outdoors and teaching. So I look at what you wanted to be as a young person, that all seems to fit. So sounds to me like you're living the dream. But at some point you're like, times, you got stuck, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, for me, the ski industry is amazing in that you're exposed to people from all over the world that are having their vacation, right? They're excited for it. It's there's a lot of energy and emotion involved in traveling with family and trying to create that best experience. You're kind of on stage all the time. You almost at times put on a false face or a mask because you're trying to create the best experience for other people all the time. And that can wear on you after a while. The reality
I never thought of it in that way before.
Yeah, when the people that you're exposed to are only with you for a couple of days at a time and maybe a year or two apart until you see them again, a lot of those relationships become superficial to some degree, in that it's based on just a very small part of who you are as a person. But the people that you're around all the time is a very small group of people that are at the in the hills, in the mountains, year round. A lot of the people that you're close to that you worked with for years, you only see 3, 4, 6 months of the year. And so, that kind of changes, it affects the relationships that you build. And that, for me, it wasn't that part of the industry that I was stuck in, right? That part of it I enjoyed and found a way to thrive in that environment. But that type of environment also tends to attract people. A lot of us in the ski industry like to say we had the Peter Pan syndrome, right? I never want to grow up, right? I always want to do things kind of footloose and fancy free. Mm-hmm. And at points it limits the opportunities that you see, right? That are around you. Specifically for me, there was aspects of my job that I absolutely loved, but I was allowing a leader that I was working with to kind of change the way I was interacting in certain parts of my role in a way that wasn't authentic to me. Is that I didn't have the strength as a leader who was still growing in my skill set to really say, hey, treating people this way doesn't work, right? It's not authentic to me. It's not the way that I want to be as a leader. I often think that there are parts of my job when I was feeling stuck that it felt like there was just a small nail that someone was holding on the top of my head, and they just had a tiny little hammer that they would just tap, just gently every once in a while, right? And you'd feel the little point in your skull. You'd feel it. It was uncomfortable every once in a while, but you kind of learned how to deal with it. Mm-hmm. But over time, it became more and more of a distraction from who you were. It was more of had more of an effect on who you were trying to be, to where it started to bring out pain, or it started to bring out not just a slight discomfort, but actually this is preventing, right? This behavior is preventing me from doing what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And for many years when I was stuck, it was okay. Like I'd let that I knew the tapping was going to happen with that nail in the head, and I just let it happen instead of grabbing the nail and pulling it out and doing something different. Yeah. And so for me, it was that piece of, for a long time, it was comfortable. I was being I was very successful in what I was doing. At the same time, I was an examiner, so an advanced educator with Professional Ski Instructors of America. So I had reached a level of ski instruction, or ability to instruct at maybe 5% of the skiing profession get to, and that was great. Yeah. Something I espoused to for a long time, but at the same token, there was this nail in my head that was being tapped on. So something, and for me, it was right. A leader that wasn't bringing out my best. In fact, although there was areas of that leader that I have so much respect for, and he opened up opportunities for me that I would never have had having not been exposed to him. At the same token, there were things that I allowed to happen while I was working there that were that nail in my head that someone was always tapping on. Mm-hmm. At times, I was doing the tapping on the nail myself. At other times, I was allowing others to do it. And after 18 years in the ski industry, it was time to pull out that nail and do something different. Yeah.
So what was the pivotal moment? Was there a new opportunity presented to you? Did you quit? Did you say, I just need to move and change my environment? Or
yeah, for me, so the last 2 years I was in the ski industry, I moved out of the mountains, and I was working at the corporate offices down in Denver, and did that as a kind of a first attempt at really trying to change what I was doing. Yeah,
change where you live is a big deal, right?
Changing a lot, changing what I was exposed to from an opportunity to grow, new arts opportunities, new food, right, new stories, new environment, new people to interact with. And at the same time, was it less
seasonal? Because
it was year round at that time.
Now it's corporate, right?
At that time, I had been year round for the resort already for about 5 years. Mm-hmm. In my last role at the with the ski school, and then for 2 years in in the sales and marketing team. So that wasn't a big change for me. It had been enough of a year-round job that it was good. I had left the ranch years prior. So no longer had the summer versus winter type of role. My role was very, very consistent. Paychecks were consistent, which was great.
Yay!
But at the same token, I felt like people only knew me as someone in the ski industry, so I had to stay in the ski industry in my mind. And so that's what I did. I took a role that was a great role, and I loved that job. It was a lot of fun for 2 years, but it came to a point at the end that I was starting to do things that, being asked to do things that were just to do them the way that we had always done them, right? Just do it this way, because that's what we've done. And that ability to innovate and design new products, to design new experiences for guests was becoming a smaller and smaller part of my job, and didn't want that. Yeah. And at the time, I was at a spot where financially I could afford to walk away. I probably didn't do it the best way for me financially, but I actually left, gave a month's notice, finished up a few big projects, left before the start of the new ski season, and spent almost 4 months what I call wandering. I would hike almost every day with my dog. I would listen to podcasts. I was reading different leadership books. I decided for a brief moment that I wanted to earn a PMP certification, so project management professional. Shelled out a bunch of money for that course. Went through all of it. Decided after spending a lot of money that this isn't what I want to do. I don't want to push paper. And at the same time, was just dabbling and looking for what jobs were out there. And at the time, saw a posting for a job that was around sponsorships, specifically sponsorships in an industry that I knew nothing about, eSports, so professional video game tournaments. I knew nothing about the industry at the time, but saw the posting and said, there's enough keywords in this posting that line up with the job that I just had, that I will at least get an interview. And it will give me an opportunity to just get back in that mode of interviewing and putting myself out there, and get away from the little bit of solitude and hiking every day with my dog that I had been doing, and ended up getting hired for a role with an international eSports
Here you're thinking,
company.
I'll at least get an interview, and then you get the job.
I ended up getting the job. And so it was an amazing role. So I was helping bring an eSports festival to North America. They had only had one for this particular company in North America prior to the North American sales team being put together. And so I was tasked specifically with looking at companies that were not traditionally aligned in computers or in video games, and bringing them in to the ecosystem as sponsors. And so some of those same companies that I worked with in sponsorship at Winter Park Resort was able to, introduce them to eSports in this new industry by building partnerships and building some sponsorships. And it was amazing. The job took me to Sweden for 10 days, where the home office was. I had to do some travel. I got to travel all over, the United States and some in Canada. And
Did you ski when you were in Sweden?
I did not. We were there for summer, actually. So we were there over midsummer at 22 hours of sunlight. During the kickoff of
I forget
summer.
how far north
it's amazing, yeah. So no skiing then, but really a great experience. But for me, that role, great people, great opportunity. When I took the job, I said, told myself I would commit to it for 2 years. And at the end of the first year, it was clear to me that it wasn't the right culture fit for me. Communication with the team back and forth from Sweden to Colorado wasn't great. I was frustrated in that putting together these deals with sponsors was taking much longer than I felt it should, because there's a whole team that I was communicating almost solely through email with in a different country, 12-hour time distance, all of that. And for me, it wasn't the right fit. And the way sometimes things work out the way they should, the team in Sweden came to us, the whole North American sales team, and essentially laid us off. got rid of our team. And at first it was a shock. It was like I felt like a failure, and the other side
took it
is
personally.
took it very personally, and that
it's
I
hard
couldn't,
not to.
it just didn't happen the way that you wanted it. But at the same token, I was already feeling that it wasn't the right fit for me, and I was only staying at that point because I had committed to myself that I would be there for at least 2 years before I made a shift.
But it's hard when you were the one, you didn't get to do the breaking up.
Yeah, not completely. There were some discussions. There were some other opportunities in the organization that were there if we wanted them, and it just wasn't the right fit. So the opportunity exit was made for our whole team. The entire team decided they didn't want to stay in any capacity, and for me it was a blessing. While I was there, I got to do some of the things I absolutely loved. I got to build coalitions. I got to bring in sponsors in a way that designed experiences for people at these gaming festivals that was unique, that was true to the brand for the company I was working for and true to the sponsor's brand as well. And that innovation and building coalitions from different companies and stuff was incredibly rewarding. But at the same token, there wasn't a passion, like I had in the ski industry for skiing, to really be about the gaming. There is a game. There's some titles I love to play, but for a lot of people in the organization, it's their life.
Yeah.
Like skiing was in my life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so it was clear to me it wasn't the right fit for the long term. And when that transition happened, I was very clear in that I wanted to continue to be in roles where I was exposed to leaders from all over. I wanted to have the opportunity to bring those leaders together in a way to build something new together. And I didn't know what that looked like. And then I also had that experience of bringing in sponsorships and augmenting programs and strategizing on things like pricing and marketing and how can those affect a business. And going back a little ways into the ski industry for a minute, I had mentioned that there's those moments where you always have a side gig.
Yeah.
Well, for me, one of those side gigs was I was dabbling in a little bit of consulting, doing some leadership type of training for companies through a person who was a dear friend, a powerful mentor in my life, a gentleman by the name of Rudy Mick. He has the Mick Companies, MIICK if you want to look it up. But he's an amazing leadership coach. Really working on changing cultures in organizations so that employees and customers have amazing experiences, from everything from a hiring standpoint all the way through to communication through teams and through a little bit of work with him, I realized that's a piece of me that I really loved. And so in looking for a job, a friend of mine mentioned, hey, I don't know much about an organization, CTLF, Colorado Thought Leaders Forum, but in reading about them, it sounds like it might be something that you'd be interested in. And they had a role posted. And so it was a situation where I came in and got to interview and was really intrigued by the mission of the organization and really realized that this is the type of role that I've always been looking for. It took those pieces of being a teacher or a coach, to be a consultant from leadership, to be a person that gets to play with pricing and marketing and communication, and but most importantly, to be a part of a really cohesive team to deliver something that was making a change for people. And so the opportunity presented itself in a way that it really was the ideal position. And now almost 2 years in, it's, I could not have been in this position 5 years ago. Had I been, tried to go straight from the ski industry to where I was 3 years ago to where I am now, it wouldn't have worked. But having those kind of learnings in my own mind and also some experiences to know exactly what it is that I wanted, it ended up working, that the right job came available at the right time. And I was lucky enough to come and join the team.
Yeah. It sounds like right job, right time throughout your whole career.
I've been lucky. In that, there's a lot of doors that were opened for me. And had the opportunity to walk through a lot of those doors.
Yeah.
And that, interestingly, I have not, until I made the shift away from the ski industry, once I started at an organization, I never applied for another role in the organization. I was always ended up being a part of a discussion about reorganization, or designing a new role, or an opportunity to work on a project that my skill set fit. And so whether it be a lateral transition or a promotion, what have you, those jobs at both the ranch and in the ski industry kind of happened rather than I applied for those.
Wow. So can we dive into that? Because, you just said the word, I've been so lucky. And I got to tell you, like when I was in a phase of what I called transition, or I liked calling myself a free agent at the time, that felt better. But I remember people, I just fell into this. I just got so lucky. And I was like, how do you create the luck? But there's something there. So was it an openness? Was it a innovation? I mean, can you pinpoint that? Because you've been very introspective, I can tell, about what were some things you did that really, or that you really gravitated toward.
Yeah, I think, for me, when I would see situations that weren't ideal, right? Or I saw situations where there was an opportunity to make things better and no one was stepping in and saying, I want to do that. Right? That I was lucky enough to be around leaders that were willing, when I said, hey, I want to do that. Right? I think here's an idea that I have. I think I can help influence a change, make it better, increase profits, make a better guest experience, whatever it was, that people were receptive to that. Not always.
So you were
there were a lot of no's. Yeah, there were a lot of no's, and hey, that's a good idea, but we're not going to do it. But every once in a while, there was a situation where it was, let's try that. Yeah, why don't you do it? Let's see how it works. And then as that idea would, build and become larger, it would become more and more of the role that I was doing. And that would result in, maybe it's a title change, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe it's a change on the job description. Maybe it's maybe it's the development of a new subgroup of multiple departments coming together to work. They just kind of evolved. Mm-hmm. But they evolved because, one, I like to listen to what the opportunities are. And specifically, when you're hearing 2, 3, 4 different opportunities that people see, how maybe 2 or 3 of those 4 opportunities, how they actually mesh together to create the one true opportunity that can actually work.
Yeah.
Right? I think of it sometimes as, you have a box full of puzzle pieces. But those puzzle pieces are actually all from 4 or 5 different puzzles. And someone's dumped them out onto the table.
Yeah.
And no one puzzle in itself, one picture, has all of its parts there. But there's a lot of those puzzle pieces from different pictures that can fit together to create something. And when those doors would open, it was most often situations where I saw the way that some of those puzzle pieces could fit together, and that other leaders in the organization were willing to give me a chance to see what other puzzle pieces fit as well.
Yeah.
And so that would lead to growth and to change. And that, to me, is the really exciting piece about how do you take these opportunities from people and situations and mesh them together to create these wonderfully mutually beneficial things where, I'm giving back to the system, making what is there better by being involved, not because I had a unique or an idea that no one's thought of, but I was able to start to pull together teams or ideas from multiple people or situations to mesh them together in a way that was new and unique.
Yeah. So it sounds like you were on the front line, so you were able to listen to customers' firsthand experiences.
Yeah.
But you were also able to connect the dots. But it sounds like you were listening to your peers and just in general, but you could connect it and put it together, which you said you didn't come up with new ideas, but you did in a way because you put all those things together.
Yeah, I was able to put some ideas into action, and I think, both at the ranch and the ski area, the key for me was not just listening to the guests, right, and what they saw and what they wanted, but also listening to our teams, right, the people that we work with, whether they're employees, whether they're direct reports, or maybe they're your supervisor, your manager, the owner, and also listening to people that were totally disconnected from the situation, right, looking at what was going on in different industries outside of skiing, what was going on in things outside of the guest ranch experience, and how could those things, whether it be through articles or podcasts or videos, YouTube, how could those experiences that were already out there actually influence in creating something better with who we had in front of us.
Yeah.
And so I think, one of the pieces when I was feeling very stuck in my role is that it became a closed ecosystem, in that the same people were talking to the same people about the same options or same opportunities all the time, and the outside voices were being shut out. And it's when those outside voices can be listened to really go, hey, wait a minute, what's going on inside this ecosystem can be better, but to do it, we need to stop playing in the same ecosystem. We actually need to open up the network, open up the system, and let other ideas in that might not be traditional. They might be challenging. They might be disruptive, but let's explore and try things. And as a result, I've had amazing failures, right? There are things that I have done that were such a bad idea, but at other times, right, each of those failures resulted in learning and growing, right? And if you say, you think about perfection, we're striving from perfection, but perfection is really built on a million different mistakes, and it's only through those mistakes and those opportunities. I said earlier, I enjoy risk when it's non-physical. It's like, when you take risks, you're going to have failures. Yeah. But then using those failures to put together to build something better the next time by either learning or growing or whatever it is that you can't be afraid to fail. In reality, if you're afraid to fail, what you're really afraid of is success, because you won't find success without some failure.
Yeah. Well, Chris, I could talk to you all afternoon, and maybe we need to schedule another interview and talk about some of those failures, because there's so much learning.
There's some fun ones for sure.
What I picked up from this last little segment is you didn't get discouraged when you heard no. Yeah. You didn't get discouraged when you failed, if you could even call a failure, because really it's let's try this and see what happens, and if it sticks, take what works and move on. But I see just a perpetual, how can I continue to improve things, myself, etc. So I do see that as a theme in your life. So, but we do need to wrap up.
Okay, they're doing incredibly fast.
Is there any last words that you would like to share with someone maybe who is stuck or wanting to start over?
Yeah, I mean, there's really two things that I think of. And first, look at the people that are in your life and connect with them. Connect with them deeply, with no expectation of getting something from them, but just build real relationships with people, because there's an amazing amount of knowledge in every single person around you. Sometimes it's about what not to do, right? Through observation, hey, that doesn't fit me. Oftentimes it's a way to change or to shift or to bring new perspective what you are doing. And I'm actually reminded of a quote that just came across my desk again recently. It's from Steve Casimiro. He's a venture journalist, has written for National Geographic and Outside Magazine, was a longtime writer for Powder Magazine. And his statement is this: we make our most profoundly strong connections in those moments of intimacy, and more importantly, in those moments of vulnerability. And the lesson from that is, if you're stuck, if you're struggling, right, don't just put on the face and say everything's fine, but actually reach out and connect with people and say, this is what's going on, right? This is where I'm struggling. It's amazing the people around you that if you've invested in those relationships and you've spent the time trying to help them and support them in their moments of vulnerability, how those teams will come around you and really be your champions in life when you need them. But it starts with spending time consciously every day of finding some way to make an impact, to make somebody else's life better. And you can't ask for help until you've delivered help. So go out and deliver help to others every day. And when you need help, those people will be there for you.
Wow. Well, I can't think of a better way to end our conversation today. So once again, thank you for sharing your story. And
thank you for having me, Kathy.
This has been an amazing journey to hear your story. And I've known you for about a couple years now.
Yeah, I guess it's been about a little year and a half, maybe.
Yeah. And so now to hear your story put together in this way has been, I'm very excited about that. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Listeners, if you enjoyed today's podcast, please subscribe and you'll be notified of other interviews coming up. And if you have any questions for me or for Chris, please post them on my website, lifestorycurator.com, and I'll make sure to get the questions to Chris or get back to you about the questions you pose to me. So thanks again and have a great day.
Thank you so much.